Okay. Mike, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you remain standing for a moment of silence for the brave men and women, all aspects of our enforcement, whether it be troops, police, EMS, fire, thank them for what they do. Give them the strength to continue keeping us safe. And God bless those that have given the ultimate with their lives. Thank you.
I have been told that we are back to live streaming. So this meeting is going to be live streamed. The board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss a personnel matter. Chief, would you like to mention the reaccreditation?
In February, the Pennsylvania police chiefs visit us again for reaccreditation. And in order for us to reach accreditation, we had to prove that we met 132 different standards and that we actually live by our policies. So you have to provide proof that you're in compliance with each of the 132 policies. That makes us one of roughly 8% of all police departments in Pennsylvania that are accredited, and one of only 6 in Chester County that are also accredited. And we're very proud. Our elected officials and our residents, because we want to always prove that we are providing police services to the gold standard and not just good enough standard. Any questions?
Is that a 5-year accreditation or?
No, every 3 years.
Every 3, it is 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Thank you so much, and thank you
Yeah.
and all your officers
Yeah.
for everything that they do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Because our next meeting would normally be scheduled on the 21st, which is Election Day, we have moved the meeting to May 28th, the following Tuesday. I'll now open the meeting for public comment on non-agenda items.
Lost my pen. Investigate my pen. Sorry.
Russ Frank, 451 Gatewood Drive. John, I think I'm directing this one to you, if I may.
Okay.
I've been reading a lot lately, in the past couple of months, about townships moving away from recycling programs. And I understand that it's been somewhat of a topic for East Goshen. Where do we stand with that issue?
Well, we're not, townships aren't moving away from recycling. And we're required under state law to have recycling programs. So maybe that's just semantics. The issue is more that the market for recyclable materials is completely dried up. Allegedly starting because China closed its doors to accepting our U.S. recyclables. So there just simply isn't a market for a lot of the plastics. And so in order for there to be a market, all of those dirty plastics or dirty cans with food on them or grease on them, greasy pizza boxes that you maybe could have recycled 2 years ago, you can't anymore. And so we put some articles in the newsletter sort of encouraging people to when in doubt, throw it out. Recycle smart rather than recycle everything. What happens is, we understand it at the recycling centers, you now have these armies of people who are just pushing everything that looks like it could contaminate the recycling stream, out into the landfills. So what we're seeing, from a financial standpoint is Whereas a year or 2 years ago, we would get money back from the recycling contractor from, you know, a percentage of their revenues. Now we have to pay pay the recycling center for that service, and so that cost is borne by the refuse and recycling fee that you pay on a quarterly basis with your sewer bill. So, you know, the refuse fund is starting to come under more pressure than we've seen in a long time, and you know, so in the medium term, probably you're going to see a lot of municipalities raising trash rates, trash bills. Yeah, so all I can do is just encourage everybody to recycle smart. When in doubt, throw it out. And as I said, we've printed stuff in the newsletter that goes into more detail about kind of recycling smartly.
Russ, also, let me comment. We started a sustainability advisory board, and this is on our radar. I think Mike visited the Republic Recycling Center, and about 18% of the material coming in there was rejected by the process, and that's because people still aren't recycling properly. So the Sustainability Advisory Board is going to take that. They've been doing a lot of work, and we're in the process of putting a program together to educate people that answer questions that haven't been answered before on just those one page, you know, should I recycle this or not? And so we're going to deal with kind of some of the ambiguities around what should be recycled and what shouldn't be recycled, or things that went into mixed stream that actually there's another alternative for those that people aren't aware of. So we're working on that program, and it'll be rolled out this year.
So I guess I'm kind of guilty in doing what you were saying we shouldn't be doing.
You're a
How do
wishful
I-
recycler.
How do I become more aware? Because I never remember seeing come across these articles, to be honest with you. Not that I was looking for them, but how can I be a better
You will.
recycler?
I mean, there's all sorts of interesting things. I found out the other day that you can recycle packing peanuts, which aren't recyclable, but there's a facility that will take them. You know, wrappers for like bread and the filmy kind of the things you get in your dry cleaning, that's all recyclable not in mixed stream, but at a different place. So we're going to
identify.
we're going to identify that. We're going to get that information out to residents.
Now, the interesting thing about identifying some of the external sources for recycling, Subaru apparently takes particular plastic and you can bring it over. The interesting thing about sustainability and recycling is that we're going to be spending more resources. Sometimes it almost appears to recycle something than, you know, the value of the recycling, and that's a terrible conundrum to have. But when we think about cleaning some of our food containers, et cetera, how much hot water are we using? You know, how far are we driving to drop off the packing peanuts, et cetera, et cetera. It's still really important, but there's a cost to doing it. Besides the fact that the whole market is inverted, as John was saying. And when we were at the recycling center for Republic, which is over in King of Prussia, the other week, besides the fact that they have 18 to 20% residual that they're pulling out of the recycling, you know, you think everything that goes into recycling plant is going to be recycled. No, not nearly. I lost my train on the.
About the 18%.
Yeah, the 18%. And the other, yeah, my point was they also, these bundles that they're putting together of some of their respective materials, whether they're plastics or whether it's cardboard, they're only permitted to have a 0.5%, 0.5% of any kind of contamination. And apparently when some of these large packets of the recyclables get to the docks and these inspectors that are where they're going to be shipped to whatever country find something that is not right with just one of the bundles, the entire load can be rejected. And so what do they have to do? They have to then carry it back, and it's going to end up in the landfill. So the whole market dynamic has changed. And I get it. We wouldn't want to be the country that's taking all the junk if people aren't being attentive to what's happening. So we're now starting to adjust to this, and it took long enough for all of us to
conditioned ourselves to recycle over the last 25 years. Now we're going to begin to a new phase. But as David said here in East Goshen with this, our sustainability advisory committee, we're looking at that to get more information out that is understandable so we can be smart recyclers and not wishful ones that are just confounding the system rather than contributing to it. So it's we're on a learning curve now as well. The committee is, as we then start to roll it out to everybody else in the township, and hopefully there are other townships and boroughs doing the same thing. I know the borough of Westchester is an example. They're very big on it. So yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thanks, Russ.
Have a good night.
Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill.
Name, address.
Bill Wagaman, 629 North Speakman Lane, Westchester, PA. Like to just bring the board's attention, I had an opportunity to send you all a copy of a West Rock Hill Township letter yesterday. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read it, but on Monday at noon, a few of the members in the audience, myself, were on a conference call with the Clean Air Council, and it was hosted by Eve Mieri. And one of the things that Eve did bring up was the fact that West Rock Hill Township, which is in a similar predicament that we're in, I think they actually have a much larger station going up due to the Mariner East project, the Adelphia project within their township. And one of the concerns, they actually wrote a letter to FERC, because if I go down to paragraph 3, it says Adelphia personnel have continually and firmly stated that they will not comply with local ordinances representing to us that FERC advised Adelphia that it does not have to comply with local requirements. Very well written letter to FERC to put them on notice to say, we expect your support in our case as a local township when we do have a pipeline company or any company that's going to violate local ordinances. What I would like to recommend to the board is that we consider drafting a similar letter from East Goshen Township to FERC to put Adelphia, Sunoco, everybody else on notice that our local ordinances, whether it's the noise ordinances that we were very successful, you folks were very successful against Sunoco, we draft something to head this off at the pass, because again, we've got 5 pipeline companies that have easements within this township. We've only got one of them that actively is digging in the township, and the second one, Adelphia, has plans to do so.
We have done something. I'll let Rick explain what we have already done.
Interesting, the application that Adelphia submitted, they represented that they were going to comply with local ordinances. In our comments back to the FERC, we picked up on that and suggested that FERC make that mandatory when they issue their ruling or whatever they were going to issue a ruling on it. They do make that.
What they stated.
Well, yeah, they make it reality. In other words, as opposed to just saying they were going to do it, that they make that a requirement.
So Adelphia replied to the East Goshen Township board that they do plan.
Adelphia, when Adelphia filed their petition, or whatever they filed, application to FERC, in that application, they made a lot of reference. One of the things they referenced was that their intention of to comply with local ordinances. And our comments to FERC on that environment, on that application, we suggested that FERC impose that requirement on Adelphia since they agreed to do so in their application.
Okay.
So
I really appreciate that, Rick. And my request would be a follow-up letter to FERC stating that on their application, Adelphia did say that they were going to comply. You responded to us, and this is just a follow-up reminder that we still have expectations when you come into East Goshen Township. Just a follow-up reminder. Again, based on what we've all been dealing with you folks for 3 years, the general population for 2, with what's been going on with Sunoco and Energy Transfer, we need to take all proactive measures to be in front of this with every legal requirement that we have the strength of the board of supervisors and citizens to make that happen.
Bill, keep in mind that 2 other things. One is we filed as an intervener, and so we have a seat at the table, which is one of the reasons we did that. So we can make comments at any time because we're an intervener. And then we also wrote a letter requesting the upgraded environmental impact assessment as opposed to the lesser. So we're on record on 2 things with Adelphia already right now, and with our comment back on the asking FERC to make a condition of activity in the township that they would comply with ordinances.
So thank you for your help on that. One last comment is, aside from the West Rock Hill Township is, do we have any agreement or have we signed up with a fugitive dust air quality monitoring testing group, so when they do begin their HDD, that will be ready to test the quality of the air?
You're talking about Sunoco now or Adelphia?
Sunoco.
Yeah, after the pipeline task force made that recommendation, the board authorized Benoni to do it, so we're just waiting for somebody to start.
That's correct.
Is there a date that Benoni's given us, or we're just waiting for Sunoco to
Well,
start?
we
with
need,
the
we need,
HDD?
we need Sunoco to start
Okay.
doing something, yeah.
Right.
As soon as they
Okay.
start,
But
as
we,
soon as we let Pinoni know, they'll.
but we have reached out to Sunoco, they are aware of the dust issue, and they've been in conversation with DEP, and my understanding is they're going to take some measures to mitigate the dust.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Bill, if I could, just real quick, I don't want to belay this, but under the circumstances, I believe that we're adequately covered. A second letter, in my opinion, might consider us a nuisance, because right now we have everything, I'm just throwing this out there, right now we have everything going for us, that we're intervener, we've already requested the information, it's already in writing, they've already agreed to do it.
The FERC has not issued anything yet.
Right.
So we don't know what FERC is going to do. But if the board, I mean, I can write a letter.
I'm just afraid another letter might
If-
work against us. I just throwing it out there.
Based on the filings that I see, one more letter is not gonna make or break one. So there is a ton of people writing letters, petitions.
Rick, I'll second that. I'll second that.
I'll
Not
send
a
a
board
follow
member,
letter,
but I'll second that.
follow letter if you want.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, Brian Sweet, 646 Meadow Drive. Last Monday, there was a discharge of the drilling mud at Wilson and Boot Road, and I know that spill was addressed. We kept it out of the sewer and the stream embankments. I'm wondering if the board will do anything to have Sunoco assess what they spilled under the road and address that as needed.
Another one today.
There is a protocol that's approved by DEP and Environment Returns. And Sunoco followed the protocol, so after they sucked up the mud, cleaned up the mud, they then grouted the borehole, which then sends the grout out to all the fissures to, and then, so hopefully they can start drilling again.
But we don't know what they did under the road. We don't know what mess
No,
they did under the road, I guess.
I don't think
Well,
it ran that
yeah.
long either, did it?
No, but what we intend to do is, once they get the second bore through, because their intentions are to drill the first bore and get that one through and connected, and get one pipe in, then come back and do the second. Once they get done both pipes, we'll go up, dig up, the entrance, open up the entrance to Wilson Drive and see what's happening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, Lex, how you doing there, bud? All right.
Lex Pavlo, 611 South Speaking Lane. I had no real intention of coming up here tonight, but I received a text about a half hour ago that there was another inadvertent return.
There was another one about, so we're going 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, so I kind of assumed you guys would know, but I just wanted to go on record saying it happened again and oops.
There is a protocol that there's a protocol that was agreed to by the Clean Air Council, DEP, and Sunoco that spells out how these issues are handled. And depending on whether or not the mud gets into the stream, it's one case. If it goes to an upland, it's another. But there's a whole process that they have to follow, and they can't start drilling back up again until the DEP signs off.
Okay, and I just would guess that there's some kind of rule that says if you go from 1 to 2 to 3
There is
to 4
something in
to
there that
5,
at some point they have
at the
to do
same place, there's a kind of a problem there, I think.
They have to do additional analysis, yes.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but but you can read it if you go to DEP's, Google DEP, pipeline, Mariner East, and then look for the petition for supersedes. Very interesting document, if you have free time.
I have a lot of that. Thanks.
Thanks, Lex. Oh, I can see why.
Yeah, you have the short legs today.
Ryan Coco, 633 North Speakman Lane in Westchester. Just two quick things. I just reached out to a gentleman, Mark Davis from Perchucon, however you pronounce that. And our concern is at New Kent, as you're probably aware, they're going to be starting drilling there momentarily. And I reached out to him questioning why there was not any kind of a tarp on the outside. I've noticed in some of their locations now they're tarping both sides, and according to him, he's saying that tarping is just for a noise barrier. I don't necessarily agree with that, because if you look at the existing tarps, you can see quite a bit of dirt accumulation, so they do catch some of that. But our concern for the people that back up to that location, we were just brutalized last summer trying to sit down on our decks. It was 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I'm going to continue to follow up, with them. Initially, he said they're going to control the deaths with water, which, that remains to be seen. But I'm just not exactly sure why they've tarped both sides in some drilling locations, and not in they don't plan to do it for New Kent. I don't know, Rick, are you?
We've reached out to Sunoco and expressed concern about noise and dust at that location. So if they start drilling and it's loud, we'll have Benoni go out and measure noise, and we go from there.
Okay, all right. And then secondly, Rick, kind of directed you and I have talked about this a few times. I just reached out to PennDOT again regarding the condition on both sides of the road, from basically Boot Road going up to 352, and it's basically branches and debris that kind of sits. There's almost no shoulder, and basically what happens is eventually some of those branches and even rocks end up falling out actually into the road. Now, according to the person, I didn't get the person's name at PennDOT, they said that is their responsibility. There's a ton of branches right now at New Kent coming up from Paoli Pike, and it just can get very dangerous, because it seems like eventually, I guess with the heavy rains we've had, those branches tend to actually end up in the street. And then I also reminded them of the ongoing flooding issue down at the intersection across from Dunkin' Donuts. Now, once again, this time in the past, they said it was the township's responsibility. This time they said, no, that's their responsibility. So whether or not they're going to do anything to address it, I guess it remains to be seen, but I'm going to continue to follow up with them. It's just so frustrating. The township has days of clean up and walk around, and there's a lot I know that the township does to try to beautify the area. And, the next time you're driving up Boot Road from Paoli Pike, just look at either side of the road. It's just really horrible. There's dead branches, there's rocks, there's one almost like a log that's just about sitting right out in the street. So just wanted to give you a heads up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes. We don't have any emergency services reports tonight. Are there any comments on the minutes as corrected?
No, I appreciate your review of it, though, in detail.
I'll second that. That was a motion, and I just seconded it.
So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any comments? Any comments from the table? Any comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay. Treasurer's report.
I had one question that I did not have a chance to ask John. John, 1 of 5, page 2. Sorry, I've been asking the meeting. We got started with something else. Canceled effective 5/9. Was it canceled due to performance or?
Yeah, that's those tiny little, that tiny little copier in that,
The little thing in
that
there?
little thing, and then it was the end of the billing cycle. It's that maintenance contract is not worth it for that, so I told him We're done with that. I just want to let you know that you won't see that one again.
That's done.
It's being recycled.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I reviewed the bills pretty closely. Those that have to do with public works, I do talk to Mark a lot. So if you have anything, bring it up now. Or if there's nothing, I would be prepared to make a motion, Madam Chairman, that graciously accept the receipts and pay the bills that we have in front of us once approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comment? Comment from the floor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report is passed. There are no public hearings tonight, and there's no old business, so we will move over to new business. The first,
First item is a recommendation of Mark to purchase a small used roller. To be used primarily for doing the cul-de-sacs, just because it makes it a little easier to get around the cul-de-sac and then also patch. But he has poked around and found one for $8,500. And recommended that we purchase it and then add it to the fixed assets.
Madam Chairman, I know for a fact, I've seen them do it, that they need this little thing to do the smaller areas and circles. So I would make a motion that we purchase a used roller for approximately $8,500 and treat the roller as a regular capital asset.
Yep,
As discussed between he and John.
Yes, I'll second that.
any comments from the table? From the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chairman, the next item is a form letter from Verizon, basically under the Communications Act 1934. They're just notifying us that they intend to start formal negotiations. If you recall, we, along with several of the other municipalities in Chester County, have contracted with Cohen Associates to represent us in these negotiations. So this is a formality, but we acknowledge and receive the letter.
Start the process.
And then the last item is, under second class code, municipalities can give money to fire companies. The fire companies have to tell us how they're going to spend it. And essentially, they're going to use our donation for apparatus upkeep and maintenance.
Madam Chairman, we are approving.
No, we don't have to actually, you've already approved it. It was in the treasurer's report. You just have to acknowledge it.
Oh, okay, so, Madam Chair, okay, so you're going to acknowledge, I'm sorry.
I acknowledge.
It was in there too, I'm sorry.
And there's one announcement about the road.
Oh.
Announced that on June 5th, there'll be a joint meeting, East Whiteland Township, East Goshen Township, Immaculata, to roll out the proposed possible improvements to the intersection of King Road and 352. Chris Williams of McMahon Associates will be making a presentation, and we will be sending out a letter to everybody with 1,000 feet on both sides, sending out a joint letter. So
The two townships met with McMahon and looked at various options that are available and felt that it was very important to get resident input before any decision is made. So this particular meeting will be an informational meeting describing what possibilities McMahon has proposed and getting input from the residents so that at some point the townships can try to make a decision. Okay. We'll start. We met prior to this meeting to discuss some ABC appointments.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm pleased to report that when we have openings on some of our ABCs, we get more than one application. We interviewed 5 people for a vacant position open position on the zoning hearing board, and I would like to make a motion to appoint Doug Roberts to the zoning hearing board.
And I would second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Rick, could you send a letter to Doug informing him of his appointment?
Another example of one of our citizens, fellow citizens, who has just great credentials. So he's gonna be a real asset, I think, on the zoning hearing board.
Yes.
We send a thank you.
Yes,
Are you ready for planning commission?
yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, with our present member, Mr. McCray resigning or resigned, the board did some interviews, and I would like to make a motion that we appoint Eddie Decker to the planning commission. He seemed to interview very well, and it's really nice to see what I'll call newer residents. I don't mean new to the township, but people getting involved that haven't gotten involved before. In 18 years of sitting, almost 18 years, this is like the first 2 years I've seen this, and it's not all pipeline driven. It's just the fact that people are starting to wake up. But anyway, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Eddie Decker.
And I'll second that motion.
Sorry to ramble off.
Any comments from the board? Comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rick, you'll let me know.
Are we now at full seating? Yes.
Yes.
Conservancy.
Conservancy
No.
still has a
I
vacancy.
thought we voted on the conservancy.
Okay, sorry.
I'm not gonna guarantee it, but I thought we did.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any openings anywhere. But, I think we've gotten some good people here.
Yes.
All right, we have any other matter?
Madam Chair, we found out, we were notified yesterday, that the Goshen Fire Company has hired Mr. Grant Everhart, the longtime fire chief, as its new executive director. It's really great news. He's as probably everybody up here knows him, as knowledgeable about the fire company as anybody out there. As you know, last year we updated the shared services agreement with the fire company. For those in the audience who don't know, basically we provide payroll and benefit administration for the paid firefighters of the Goshen Fire Company. However, when we drafted the agreement, we didn't have anything about non-firefighter personnel. So I drafted up an addendum that I distributed before the meeting that basically just allows for the township to pay his salary and provide him with benefits under the township's benefit plan. And so everybody's clear, we're reimbursed on a quarterly basis by the fire company for those costs. So if this is agreeable to you,
Need a motion.
what do you motion?
Madam Chairman, I first have to say something. I won't tell you who, but guess who started his training when he joined Goshen?
Bob Fleming?
No,
No.
Lieutenant Batavio. Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the agreement that will cover a position that has been filled in the fire company with the present fire chief, also taking on a staff position that will handle any of the salary and or insurance differences.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments from the table? Comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do I sound old on that I started his training? Do I sound like an old man?
It was just when you start to go on and on and on, then that's when the age kicked in.
Thanks, buddy.
Back when dinosaurs roamed here.
Okay. We have received some correspondence. The first one is from Scott Shapiro regarding Mark Miller. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read the last paragraph.
Yeah.
You and your East Goshen Township crew did an amazing job to salvage our side yard with the installation of drains, and the grass is now growing back even and healthy. It seems as though we are finally going to be able to utilize and enjoy our yard now after all this time. I can't thank you enough for your professionalism and service to help resolve this issue. My family and I are looking forward to being here for a long time with our 2 young daughters, and just wanted to say thank you once again for your efforts and resolution. Mark Miller is wonderful, and it's nice when he's recognized for the work that he does.
Yeah, it was a very nice letter. I just wrote down, I said, here's another example of the township staff excelling and being professional and accessible, service-oriented, and effective. So this had to do with the drainage matter, and they put in drains associated with runoff from the road, et cetera, and just terrific the way they were.
Oh my God, there goes Michael in his old age.
Yes, so I'm done.
I just want to say that Mark took me up there on East Ocean Cleanup Day, and it's very difficult to understand from this letter the severity of the problem that these poor people have, because they're fundamentally at the bottom of the hill with a lot of water on the top of the hill, and basically flooded them out. And they were managed to figure out what to do within the bounds of reason that they could do that would solve this problem, and they did. So it was pretty creative in what they did, and I know for a fact that the folks that were most appreciative, because they had a real problem, including flooding out their cellar every time it was a significant rain. So they had bought a house, and unfortunately they didn't realize it wasn't told in the material that they had this problem. And when they got in the house, they had a young family, and they found out they had this problem, and were curious about what they were going to do about it. So we saved them a lot of money and solved the problem that really should be solved by us anyway.
Right.
And it was done very creatively by Mark and the staff.
Well said.
Yes. We have another letter. This one's short, so I'll just read it. Attention Rick Smith. I realize you get letters and complaints, but I am choosing to compliment you on 2 township employees I met when I recently visited our township building. Chris Bollinger explained the quarterly sewer refuse spill. Mark Gordon was very helpful in explaining the floodplain and the area that FEMA declares is now a floodplain. We have been township residents for 41 years at this address, and never before was this tiniest creek ever a concern. Thank you for hiring these fine employees, from Ron Galitsky.
Yeah, like that.
So our staff is great, and again, I appreciate when it's acknowledged. Is that anything else? Anyone else have any comments?
I have one final question. I got a correspondence from a resident, pretty much as I was leaving the house this evening. And it has to do, and I don't understand the legal implications, but I want to bring it up. We have pipeline workers loitering or lingering or inspecting areas adjacent to public school and private school playgrounds. This resident was curious as to whether or not Sunoco or any subcontractors do any background checks on any employees that might come in contact with play areas or children.
Ricky, we investigated this about a year and a half before David came on the board. There was a question from a public input, and we asked Sunoco, and I forget.
Well, I know that this question came up about public works and them working like on the playground, doing playground maintenance, and whether that constituted close proximity. And I remember talking to Kristen about it. We looked at the law carefully, and that didn't, like our guys, blowing and raking and sweeping at the playground, even if there's kids running by, did not constitute, interaction with kids that rose to the level of needing like a state mandated background check.
So we're talking about Sunoco. We had a specific public input from the resident that asked us if the flag people that are by the schools and churches and so forth, how do we know they're not pedophiles? And we asked Sunoco, so go ahead.
No, well, the law that requires people to have contact with children in schools does not apply to, people that are working on the side of the road or public utility workers.
There was
And,
an answer.
and the chief responded to that lady. That's the response the chief gave to the lady.
So the chief does have a legitimate response that she did.
Yeah, she did, yeah. But essentially, they're on, they have an easement through that property too, so, I mean, that's the other,
They have a right to be on that.
yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
No.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Sure. Marty, do something, will you?
So that was
Okay,
Marty.
is there a second?
Second, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Marty, you're not going to embellish? No.
Didn't make 7:30, but we got close.
Can't got your tongue? Can't got your tongue?